dive into this conversation together. Good morning, everyone. My name is Toby Fraser. I'm the manager for community education at Lutheran Settlement House. I'll do some more intros in a few, but wanted to just get us kicked off by welcoming you all here today. Welcoming you, whoever you are and however you are, whatever you're bringing with you to this session. I want to welcome all the different genders of folks that are here with us. So welcome to the cis men and the cis women. That's those of us who were assigned a gender of male or female at birth and still agree with that, still feel that in our bones. Also welcome to any trans folks who are here with us, those who have shifted their gender throughout their life. Also welcome to the gender creative people, the non-binary folks, the people who are really expanding what gender can be in this world. Welcome to you and how those experiences impact this conversation. Please welcome them in. I want to welcome the different races and ethnicities that might be with here. So welcome to all the Black folks, the African Americans who are here with us. Welcome to those of European descent, the white people. Welcome to the Latine and Latinx community. Welcome to those of you of Asian American or Asian descent and the Middle Eastern folks. Welcome to people of mixed and multiracial identities, to the Indigenous people that might be here. Welcome to those of you who aren't really sure what your identity might be due to acts of colonization and empire throughout our history. Welcome again to how those identities really do impact this conversation that we're going to get into today. I want to welcome any other identities that feel important to you, that feel like they do have an impact on this conversation. I want to welcome that in, welcome you to bring it, whether verbally, unmuting throughout, or in the chat. I want to welcome the survivors that are here with us. We know that domestic violence impacts so many people, so welcome to you and your stories. Welcome to the supporters of survivors who are here with us, those of us in this movement to try and keep our communities as safe as possible, doing all that we can for the survivors in our lives. Welcome to your experiences. Welcome to your curiosities. Welcome to the folks that have never had domestic violence touch your life really in any way, that this is totally new for, this conversation about safety planning and working with police or not and survivorship around domestic violence. Welcome to that curiosity and also the experiences and expertise that you bring just from your other lived experiences in life. I want to welcome any feelings that are there right now, any feelings that come up as we move throughout this session. Whether that's excitement that we're talking about it or nervousness, there's skepticism of who is this like white dude talking about this thing. Welcome in all of that. I want to welcome in if anyone's feeling already a little upset or even provoked by this conversation happening in the first place. Welcome that in. You can bring it with you. It's welcome here. Also welcome the joy at talking about this and getting real together and really trying to continue to build this world that we need and that survivors of domestic violence definitely need. I also want to welcome in your participation throughout. There'll be a couple of moments where I'm going to share a link to some Google Slides and invite you to type right into them so we can create some of this content together and get into it. Your stories are necessary for this conversation to flow. I can share a lot of stuff, I definitely will, and there's so much more that we can get with any of you being willing to share in, whether it's on those slides, in the chat, or even out loud or on camera. All of that is welcome. I want to pause and just invite you, if you're feeling called to welcome in anything else, to take a moment and feel free to welcome that in. Again, whether out loud or in the chat. Welcome to other things that you all might want to add. Also want to welcome the silence. That'll potentially be with us here again today. It'll be welcome as well. And just welcome to all the things said and unsaid. Let's get into it and see what we can get to. So just to make sure you're in the right spot, this is where you're hoping to be. This session is called Following the Plan, pardon me, Safety Planning for Police and Client Interactions. So again, my name is Toby Fraser. I'm the manager for education at Lutheran Settlement House. LSH, this is us. Sometimes friends stop by. We're over here in the Fishtown neighborhood of Philadelphia. This building was built for the agency back in 1902 or 1905, I think is when it was completed, when we were founded. So we've been around for a long time. We've been doing domestic violence survivor support work since the late 70s, along with most of these centers and agencies across the country. A lot of us started in this kind of bulk time, late 70s, early 80s. Right now, our services are pretty similar to what they were pre-COVID, and here in this liminal space of, is it ever going to end? Is it ended already? What's going on? We're out here helping to answer the Philadelphia Domestic Violence Hotline. Like lots of hotlines, it's a 24/7 free number that people can call. We answer it in coalition with 3 other domestic violence agencies here in Philadelphia to make sure that it's covered 24/7. We're offering counseling, both virtual and phone, and occasionally now even in person again. So that's individual and group support for survivors of domestic violence. We've got a medical advocacy program. So folks from LSH are out in the hospitals around the city, and a few of them training staff, from security guards to doctors, in recognizing the signs of domestic violence and how to talk to patients and people about what might be happening to them, to empathetically ask and then get them connected to that advocate or to other services if they choose. We also have some housing support for survivors of domestic violence. Again, we're able to get people into our sister agency, Women Against Abuse, runs the domestic violence shelter, and then we're able to keep folks either in their house or help them move to a new one if that's their choice. We also, in this big building, we have a food pantry and a few other services for the community. So definitely, if you have curiosities or questions about Lutheran Settlement House, don't hesitate to ask. That's the quick and dirty of who we are and how long we've been here. As for me, I've been around for a little bit, not the longest. This is me, already trying to play around with what these gender roles are in our world and how to deal with them as a young one, really cementing in the desire to do this work and really loving working at this place where we get to get creative with our messaging. We have something called the Masculinity Action Project, where we're out trying to engage more men and masculine folks into this movement of supporting survivors and ending violence as we know it, trying to really change the narrative of what our culture tells us is true into what we need it to be. This is my nephew, just trying to bring in a little humanity in here, and that's my wife. Family and caring for people and other creatures is something really important to me, and a part of why I do this work is making the world what we need it to be and continuing to bolster up the efforts of what's already happening out there. I'll give a little shout out that this is Frankie the dog. She's here with me at the office today. We only come in like 3 days a month now, which gives us enough staff to support clients who come in, but not so many people that we all have to make those commutes, and for folks with kids have to deal with it. So trying to get that human-centered approach here as well. But she might get upset. Who knows? She's sleeping under my feet right now. So if you hear a bark, that's why. It's not anything happening to me. Awesome. And yes, for agencies that are working with sexual assault survivors, I think there'll be a lot of overlap. And definitely you tell me, right, as we go along, if there's questions about like, ooh, how would that translate, or bring in your ideas of, oh, this is how I would flip that a little bit, or here's how we would give it the tweak. And thanks so much, Brittany. Appreciate you. All right, so maybe that's enough preamble. Hope you all feel welcome here. You can see me, and hopefully I'll see some of y'all a little bit. Again, see in the broad way, whether through your words and thoughts or through turning on the cameras. So if we dive right in, I don't love statistics, right? They can be tricky to pick. They can be tricky to name. And I wanted to pull out a couple of them here at the start. So I'm going to share a few statistics, and then I'm going to invite you all, not to share the numbers, but to share more of the experiences on one of those shared slides. So get ready for that in a moment. But for now, here's some of what we're seeing around the country, is that currently what's happening is that less than half of survivors of domestic violence are calling the police for help, right? So it's not like everyone is out there calling 911 looking for support from police when they're in an abusive relationship as it is. It's even less for survivors of rape and sexual assault. That study shows, this is the government's report, shows that only 1/4 of rape survivors reach out to the police to report or seek support from them. And that in cities where the data was publicly available, what they saw was that 1% to 7% of 911 calls were for domestic violence. And again, I'll share the link to these slides at the end so you can click on these links and visit yourself and see more of this full report from Interrupting Criminalization by Andrea Ritchie. Right, so it's not a situation that we're in where everyone is trying to call 911 for help and then either having a great or not so great or anywhere in between experience. What we're seeing is that not many people, right, definitely not the majority of folks, are even using this as a resource, which leads some to say like, oh, okay, well, what we need to do then, right, is just tell more people. We need to get out here and be letting folks know, hey, 911 is a place that you can call, yeah? And where I would come in is to say, I'm not so sure we should be that quick to say 911 is definitely the answer for everybody. Because some of what we're seeing and what we're hearing is that 2/3 of survivors and service providers are reporting that the police either sometimes or often use force against the survivor, and particularly if that's a Black survivor. 2/3 of them are reporting that this is happening sometimes or often. We see that 88% of survivors and service providers say that the police currently do not take domestic violence complaints seriously. So the calls come in, the ones that do, and then it looks like the vast majority of the time, those complaints aren't believed, aren't taken seriously. It's something that we definitely hear from our clients here. And then unfortunately, the research does show that police are targeting survivors for sexual harassment, for extortion, for assault, for all these things, right, that we're not in support of, but that we're seeing happen. And so then we're in this place of having to figure out, well, what do we do now, right? What can we do when this is the scene? Yeah, these are some nationwide statistics. This is from across the country, not too long ago, not 2021 by any means, but within the past couple of years. This is what folks have been saying. So I want to slow down on telling you how it is and get a little clearer on how you all see it being. So I'm going to come into the chat and I'm going to add this link and invite you all to join me there as you're able. And I'm going to go there too and share the screen. So on this link, if you're able to come here, you'll see some Post-it notes. And these are super cute. You can just double click on them and type whatever you would like. I'm going to stop running my mouth in a moment and just invite you all to join me there and to pick any Post-it. Maybe it'll get messy and 2 people will pick the same one, but we'll make it through ourselves. If you can't get there, you can always type your thoughts into the chat and I'll copy them over for you. But the 2 questions you can see them there are, in your experience, right? What are you seeing as ways that police have been supportive of survivors that you know, that you are, that you work with? And then on the second slide there, it's, what are the ways that you're seeing police have harmed survivors, that it hasn't gone so well? And so like I said, feel free to pop into the chat. I'll copy it over for you if you need to, or just watch it happen. I'll go back and forth a little between the 2 slides. Some coming up on the support side. Awesome. A little bit coming up on the harm side, unfortunately. Let me not forget to check the chat. All right, nothing in there. Select their items. All right, so we've got called Other Victim Services for additional support. I'll add those on too. Let me know if my shorthand doesn't work for you. I lost your name there, Brittany. And then accompany families to their homes to collect items. And an unfortunate harm, dismiss multiple calls, not taking calls seriously. Pardon me. All right, we've got another one for the referral. Oops, wrong side. Let me go up there? There we go. I'm not going to live here, but we can spend another moment or two. I'll give a shout out. I'll move this little triangle. There's some green lightning bolts. I forgot to do this a moment ago. My apologies. If you see one that you want to just give a little like, oh yeah, me too, feel free to drag a lightning bolt to just give it a little emphasis for all of us. My caller does not speak English. Sophie, I'm going to start it and you chime in if this doesn't feel good, but I'm just going to put improper translation services or interpretation. But if that doesn't feel good and you'd like it written the way you did, let me know. Pardon me. All right. Curious if anyone's bold enough to break the ice here and wants to jump off mute and share either something that you're seeing or something that you wrote that you want to give a little extra emphasis to on either of the slides. Pardon. All right, you never know. Always worth a shot, right? I'll keep asking. Feel free to interrupt me if I'm not noticing. We get to pretend like we're in person. It'll be fun. All right, this is great. So let's see. We've got, some referring to services, bringing people to the shelter, going with them to their home. That gets some. Transportation has been helpful. Connecting with services. We love that. I'm gonna, not because it's a small one, but make the font a little smaller so we can see it better. Delete some of these and make that Post-it bigger. What does this guy say? Remove the survivor from the offender, right? Providing resources, love that. Attending relevant court hearings, very helpful. Yeah, giving local victim witness service number. All right, transportation. All right, so I'm seeing some themes around referrals, some court, and yeah, some like transportation or going with people. That's standing out to me here. And on the harm side, we're seeing, threats of dual arrest a couple of times. I see that. People are hearing that how often and how common it is that police themselves are abusive partners. So they're survivors that we or someone who's working with are feeling, not trusting the police. That can be challenging. Questioning in an accusatory manner or victim blaming, that comes up a lot. Delete that so we can make this bigger again. Refuse to arrest. Okay, so they're not enforcing a PFA, it sounds like, or saying that I'm not going to help you because you don't have a PFA. I'm sorry, I said it wrong the first time there. Yeah, brushing it off, saying it's, minor. Being asked to show up but not showing up for court or, an interview. Making some threats about not coming. Yeah, ignoring stuff. Sexual misconduct. Really tough. Thank you for sharing those. Feel free to keep adding them before we're done, before I share the link to the main slide deck. I'll definitely copy these slides in here so that we have them together. But for now, I just want to just validate that this is very similar to what we've seen when we've done this workshop in many other places. And so the next slide, this is from a workshop we did, this same or very similar workshop version of it, with the state coalition in New Jersey. And so we asked them, the same question. And I sorted it a little bit. And the three main buckets of support that folks in Jersey had sound pretty similar to what we see here. So there's some de-escalation or removing the abusive partner. There was some exposing of the domestic violence, or what we were noticing is like the police report and the proof and how that was really helpful, like in court, say, and connecting to resources. Those are like the three big things: connecting to resources, sometimes removing people or support in that way, and then some of this like proof, evidence, reports, that bucket. This one came up, I didn't know where to put it, but it feels real, right? That for those of us with privilege, especially white privilege, that it can be easier to seek support from the police. And so if someone was noticing that was something in the clients they were working with, is that especially survivors with some privileges in society were more willing to, more interested in working with the police, and those more marginalized were less so. In this particular group, we needed to add a second slide around harms. I didn't go in and sort these, but again, they seem pretty similar to what you all named, right? A lack of training, not believing people. Other identity stuff was coming up in this particular training, right? The previous one about privilege. This group is talking about LGBTQ survivors, not feeling safe, not being believed, being targeted, etc. Let me slow down and just make sure if there's anything that, again, you want to shout out or give a noticing of, feel free, again, verbally or in the chat, something that you're noticing that you either agree with, disagree with. Any of that is very welcome. I'll give this one a shout out of something that I didn't see on our slides together, but hear about from clients here is that the police sometimes take a while to get there. And then by the time they come, things have de-escalated. And then when they leave, things pop up again. So it's tricky to say that's right, like a fault of, but it is a cause of police in the system that we're in. And seeing a shout out around or not believing in victim blaming is a reflection of society as a whole, right? Not just policing. Yeah. Police are people, right? People raised in this culture, overall. So yeah, definitely that's a piece. Thanks, JC. Failure to separate the abuser from the victim when questioning can be a major issue. Yep. Yeah, definitely something that's really challenging. Yeah. Right. So here we are in this world of some benefits, some harms, right? Police as people. Leaves us with this, what do we do about it reality? So I'm curious, again, before I just keep going, let me get this slide over here. Curious to, catch a couple of thoughts from y'all. What do you think, just here at the top, what do we do about this, right? Here's the reality we're in. Any quick thoughts on where to go from here, say? Something that you think, we got to get a little punchy because of how short this is in terms of it being a Post-it. And we'll spend more time here as we keep going, but just curious where folks are at with it. And again, always drop it in the chat. I can add it up onto those slides together. Let me just make sure the link, just in case anyone missed it. Education, I'll get that up there for you, Miss Amy. Collaboration between police and service providers. So we need it. Yeah, we're seeing some things that I'm seeing are, some trends around let's work together, right? Let's move this right over here. Some education and training. Let's move that right over there. Some accountability necessary, right? Well, that's interesting. The text box moves from the Post-it. Advocate for language policy appropriate translation, right? So some of the policy stuff. Yep. Alternative response teams. Awesome. Yeah, maybe we need to rethink it. Maybe asking police to do just about everything is a handful of things too many to put on one particular group, one agency, one organization to say, you handle all of these different things. Maybe it's time to rethink and say, maybe you handle some of these things and other things handle different pieces. DV sexual assault abuse needs to be tackled structurally. Right. Awesome. Any others that need to get added? Buy-in about collaboration. Is that just a like, yay, let's go with that collaboration, Brittany, or is that a separate, or saying that like there needs to be buy-in? Like we're trying to collaborate, but we need some buy-in back on whichever side the we is. If you want to add or clarify, please do, but I've got it up there for now. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right. Let's make our move back here. And again, I'll put these slides in so we have them actually here before sending out this link at the end. This tracks with what I notice, or what we've noticed in these conversations here at LSH, is that there's really a couple of big paths, and then we can shake out in the details from there to follow. One is to try and increase the benefits that we see, not benefits like healthcare, but benefits like on this slide of ways that police have benefited survivors, right? So we can increase the benefits and we can address the harms. We can do lots of things. And if those are our two big buckets, or two of the big buckets, in increasing benefits, again, here's a moment where I can make this smaller and we can add more to these bullet points, whether from the Post-its or new ideas that come up, right? Something that did come up, right? We can create, I would say, new ways to train and then sustain that learning, because training has been happening, and here we still are. So just saying training or just doing the trainings that we've always done and doing them somehow more, it just needs to change because it ain't working. So some new ways to train and then also sustain that learning, not just have that module the one time in the academy, say. Maybe we need policies for providing resources. That was an idea that came up at another workshop, to say one of the big things that helps is that police come in contact with lots of people. If there was a thing that said, give these resources, and it was done more regularly, that could be a help. We can also fund alternative institutions to offer supports. That speaks to that idea that someone else had here about rethinking. Do we need this one institution police to address all of these harms, or can we actually just start funding the alternatives that are there? And Alexis, I can add that if you want to let me know where to put it, whether on those Post-its or on one of these buckets. And then seeing I missed a couple on the chat. All right, I'm going to finish this and then I'm going to go look at the chat together. So some of the things that came up from our heads or from other workshops around addressing the harms were creating structures for accountability. Some folks talk a lot about ending qualified immunity as a way to actually get that accountability happening. I know accountability came up on our slides together. Again, funding alternatives to reduce the need. So it's not that everyone only has this one number to call or this one institution, but that the need is spread out so people have lots of places to seek help. Addressing the cultures of homophobia, transphobia, toxic masculinity. I think culture change is coming up really big in the chat as well. And then building skills in the community was one thought around addressing the harms, so that we have the skills already, just more spread out across everybody. It doesn't all have to be in agencies and institutions and groups like that. Definitely seeing that, right, law enforcement are overwhelmed, and thinking of other professions, social workers and victims advocates. I'm guessing a lot of us here are in one of those three buckets potentially, right? Having the support on the calls could be beneficial, and then it would maybe also help them see those benefits. And I know some places are working with that. Right, in crisis, we have some crisis response teams and maybe a need for more, again, speaking to this piece around funding, being able to fund those mental health crisis teams, et cetera. And changing cultural expectations for sure. Awesome. If anyone wants those added in a particular way, type it in the chat. We can always minimize this screen, type it in, and keep the party going. So if those are a couple of the paths that we could follow, increasing the benefits, addressing the harms, the way that I wanted to spend a chunk of our time, let me check that time, today moving forward, is getting into something that does a little bit of both, I think, anyway. And that's really trying to act from where we are now, right? This is the world that we're in. Here we are. What can we do with it? My thought is to dig into safety planning as a particular thing, right? As is in the title of this workshop. If we can safety plan with clients to say, here is the reality that we're in, how can we move forward together to get you the support that you deserve and need without, hopefully with being able to at least address the harms of the potential of them together, so that no one's walking in with their eyes shut, but that we're walking with purpose, that we're going where we need to and where we want to. I want to take a breath together. Whew. We're getting into some really big stuff so far. I want to take a little pullback from that for a moment. And in thinking just about safety planning as a practice, and just about safety more specifically, I'm curious from y'all, and as always, I'll add this to the slides that everyone can type into. And then you can add it into the chat as well. When in your own life have you felt even a little or just a little unsafe? Right? We're not looking for the biggest, the worst, but something, this is just to talk about some of the principles of safety planning. So what's a time that you felt even a little bit unsafe? And let me add some more bullets so folks can pick them. You'll potentially type on top of each other. We're gonna make it work. I seeded a couple ideas there about things that can feel just a little bit unsafe. And again, feel free to put it in the chat if that feels more comfortable for you or more possible for you. We've got driving in the snow. These were my two. Driving in the snow, I hate. It makes me feel, sadly, very unsafe. And shopping in early COVID, I don't know how many folks are hopefully not remembering it too vividly, but whew, those early days were a lot. If your early days of COVID were anything like mine, where it's just like, I don't know what to do. Can I touch stuff? Do we have to leave our groceries on the porch? Are we sanitizing our grapes? Like, what goes on here? Dark parking lots came up in the chat. Yeah, walking to a car in the dark, especially as a woman. Hiking alone. Yeah, so specifically not just hiking alone, but maybe I'll bold the hiking alone because then trail walks alone came up. But also this addition of then having a stranger, especially a strange man, just coming up and kind of lingering. Nobody likes that. Great, really appreciate y'all. Yeah, breaking down, having the car break down. Oops. Unknown, woo, getting deep today. With you there. Yeah, angry driver, road rage. Yeah. All right. So we can keep adding to that, but let me get this next slide up there and it's gonna, again, I'll keep saying it, but it'll get messy because the bullet points won't exactly match to the third bullet point here was the third bullet point on the previous slide. But thinking about these examples, whether you wrote it or you can connect with it as something that you've also felt, what then have you done to feel even a little bit safer? Right. So for me, those examples there are slowing down when I'm driving in the snow. If I just slow down, it can feel better. When I was shopping in early COVID, wearing a mask, realizing like, oh, if I have a list, I can just like bop, bop, bop and get out of there. Practicing mindful breathing so that I wasn't, potentially breathing too fast, too deep, but trying to keep myself calm. Yeah. Let's be on my car. Charged. All right. Speed walking. Wow, typing in front of people, y'all, can be a whole thing. I'm sure some of you are feeling it as well. Phone charged. Weapon. Grounding techniques, deep breathing. Ooh, I love when this slide needs more space than the other one of the tactics to feel safer. Let me make this smaller so we can get the box up taller. Wow, it really does not want to make it easy for me today. There we go. Yeah, sharing emotions, awesome. Planning ahead, planning for the unknown, calling someone, having a plan with coworkers to be together. Awesome, awesome. All right. All right. So let me bring this over with us right now while we're here. All right, here's our $1,000,000 question, first of many $1,000,000 questions today. What are some of the similarities that you notice on this slide? Anything stand out as, oh, here's kind of a thread that ties some of these together? Anything feel similar there? I'll show you the silly GIF one more time because I think it's fun. But then you might need to see this to be able to think about it. And again, feel free to write it in the chat or come off mute. What are some of the similarities that you see across these different bullet points? See some mindfulness, some planning, that the responsibility here is on the victim. Ooh, being in control from Amy. That last one is the one that I noticed as well and figured would be there, is that having some measure of control or agency over the situation is the thing that helps us feel safer, right? And sure, it can be framed as, potentially victim blaming or the victim needing to take that responsibility or else it's their fault, right? We don't need to go down that road right now. We can just say the things that personally help for us is feeling some agency, feeling some control over that situation. That's what's feeling good. Ooh, JC coming in with the spicy comment about responsibility on victims is a good thing. Curious to get more into that, and maybe we'll see if there's time at the end because that's a deep one. That's a deep one. And the reason that I asked this question and why I want to pull out that in particular, right, that having agency is the thing that leads to safety, is because it's not how our movement, my movement, the movement that I'm in, that potentially you or all of you are in, the survivor support movement, it's not how we've always viewed safety. A lot of the times it's been viewed as people need to get safe to have self-determination, right? Let's get you out of that relationship. Let's get you into shelter. Let's get you over here. Let me tell you where to go to be safe because I know best. And then you can start making your own choices. Then you can have agency over your life again, and then go ahead, right? But to have that agency over your own life, you need to get safe first. And I'm an expert. I know what's needed. Let me tell you, and you better do it, right? That's getting a little extra hard. But yeah, so that's a traditional view. And then there's this updated perspective, this new world that we can live into of actually what we know from our own lives is that having some self-determination, having some agency over ourselves, our bodies, our lives is what leads to safety. And so if that is the truth, if that is a truth, that having agency over our own lives, having self-determination leads to safety, that really shifts up how we support survivors sometimes. Potentially it turns it on its head. Potentially it just adds a cute little green lightning bolt or an italics to what we're already doing. Right, so this particular piece is coming from our friends at the Northwest Network. They're out in Seattle working with mainly the LGBT community on domestic violence work. And what they say, I'll just read this out loud for folks, is that at times the anti-violence movement has prioritized safety over self-determination, building many of our services on the idea that, quote, if we can make the survivor safe, then they can start to increase their self-determination. In our experience, the opposite is true. Instead of a product of safety, self-determination is a necessary precondition to creating sustainable, authentic safety in one's life. I'm going to just pause there just for a moment and see. I just want to do a quick check. Anyone, again, I'm going to keep saying it, anyone care to unmute, feel free, or drop in the chat any reactions, reflections, noticings about how this makes you feel, how this maps on or doesn't to the way that you, your agency, your organization works with survivors. I'll take off the big word quote and just go back to this real basic. Is that in line with, or does that shake up a little bit of where you're already at? In line with, thanks, Amy. Oh my God, JC, I see you now. Thank you. Sorry, I misrepresented your comment from before. A good comment is what you meant. In line with self-determination to safety. Nice, nice, great. Cool. All right, then we'll keep the party going into this next piece. Right, so that means that when we're safety planning with people, staying survivor-centered is key. And so part of that, right, the framing of today's workshop is really recognizing that calling the police can be a difficult decision. And it's really important for us as supporters to remember that survivors know best what's going to keep them safe. Not only that they know best, but that if we're actually interested in their safety, the thing we need to do is increase their self-determination and work to support that within them. So if that's what we're up to, I just want to offer these 4 tips and tricks, the 4 principles that we bring to what it is to create a survivor-centered safety plan here at Lutheran Settlement House. So the first one is that we're really focusing on offering options, not giving advice. So we're asking more questions. If we have an idea of what we think would work, we're framing that right as a question, not you should get a PFA, but what do you think about getting a PFA? Have you considered getting a PFA? How do you think a PFA would impact you or your abusive partner? Right? We're not saying you need to do this or here's where to go to do it at first, right? If they say, oh yes, I do want that. Of course, we're not then asking the question of, well, do you know where? We're saying, great, here's the resource that you need. Yeah. The next thing that we're keeping in mind and sometimes doing explicitly is what we call going back to the future, right? Really remembering that survivors are survivors. They've been keeping themselves safe and alive long before they met us or even knew we existed. And so we can always ask people, has this happened before and what did you do then? Has anything similar to this happened before and what did you do then? And then what about what's worked in the past do you think we could bring forward with us now? Right? Is there any part of that that you think might work? Any of that de-escalation with your partner the last time they threatened you with a gun? Is there anything that happened that time that stopped it from moving forward? Any of that could happen today or tomorrow or the next time, right? What do we need to do that you already know how, right? We want to build on their experiences, build on their expertise in their own life. The next one is really remembering that safety planning is a process. It's not just one-time events. So when we're working with people, we're really doing our best to make sure that we're asking questions that help us get what we say is 2 steps ahead and saying, right, not just, oh, you want to leave, great, pack a bag, but where are you going to go? How long can you stay there, right? Who are you going to contact after you're there? When's the next time that we're going to check in about, how things are going on making these moves? And then the last one is we're doing our best. This is a tough one. We sometimes spend a little time in safety planning workshops practicing this, but we want to get creative and think outside of the box, right? Sometimes it can definitely feel like we're up against a wall. The survivor is painted into a corner and there is either no way out or there's only one way out. And that's definitely a red flag to hit pause, even just for that moment of taking a deep breath. And then trying to get creative and think outside of like, okay, if I'm saying there's only one option, that means that I need to slow down and really think what else could be possible. Even if all the options aren't equally awesome, even if all the options don't feel good to me and my body, again, we're staying survivor-centered and wanting to offer all the options so that they can make the best choice for themselves with our support. We're not just saying, here's the options, good luck, but working with people to support them in that way. So I'm gonna pause again. Tess pointing out that comment before around really needing to separate people in that moment of talking to folks is really important. Definitely coming, right? I work at a community agency and that's something that we're all about here at LSH, where we only work with survivors here. And if we have people come in who are the abusive partner, then we're referring to somewhere else. But we're making sure that, folks are staying separate as well. So thanks for giving that shout out I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember who said it before. All right, I just want to pause again. Any noticings, questions, curiosities, or pushback on any of this stuff around survivor-centered safety plans? Cool. All right. then we're getting into the heart of it. This is a very exciting time. This next bit is the handout that we created here at LSH. So it was made internal collaboration with our manager of counseling and our hotline supervisor. So folks that have been in this movement for literal decades, individually and together. And Abigail doesn't have any sound. I'm hoping that Sean, you're able to jump in and support. Yeah, so this handout was made with folks who have been in it for a super long time, working with survivors both in an ongoing capacity with the counseling team and in that kind of one-time call on the crisis line, sometimes being asked to call the police with them on the line right then, sometimes being told, you know, the person is outside this door with a gun, no, I don't want you to call the police, right? That's something that we hear all too often. So anyway, folks that have the experience to bring it in around how are we bringing these principles, pardon me, to create that safety plan for when police might be involved, whether with the survivor calling them, being called on them by a neighbor, by an abusive partner, by whoever, right? What can we do? And the things on this handout are somewhat in like the best case scenario. I guess in the best case scenario, there's all kinds of time leading up to it. We're having all kinds of cute conversations with people. And in the reality of it, sometimes you might have time to ask one question or two to really figure out what is the help that we can provide or what can we do to try and mitigate this. So we'll put it out there in that way, right, with that reality that it might not always be coming up in its fullness. And here's all the thoughts that we could come up with. So one, wanting to keep it real, just like the stats at the beginning, that it can be difficult, especially for marginalized survivors, people marginalized by our society as a whole. It can be really difficult and add barriers and challenges and violence to interact with the police. So wanting to keep that front and center always when working, especially with those folks. That, again, all these things, when we're able, we want to let folks know what their rights are involved in it so that they're ready if they need to. We want to ask some initial questions about this potential interaction, right? Have they called before? What happened? What do they hope is going to happen, right? What are your goals for working with the police? How do you feel about the police? That's been one that Miss Lisa, that's our hotline supervisor, Miss Lisa was like really adamant about, has given her a lot of leeway, or it's created a lot of space to be able to talk with folks to find out how do you feel about police, because folks who are already either scared of, upset by, not a fan of the police, who are feeling the need to then call 911, doing a little bit of emotional safety planning with them first has helped those interactions go much more smoothly. Right? And then really helping them figure out what's the important information to share right now, right? Because you don't need to get into all the everything potentially. So what is it that you need to or want to share? We're just going to keep, this is a one-page handout that I think was on the conference website. So hopefully y'all are able to see it and open it and move through at your own pace as well. We found it helpful to really set people up with realistic expectations. So this is going back to those Postit slides that's similar to what you all said. The thing that we've seen the most support from police is serving PFAs, right? And that initial, before it's enacted, to serve them the papers to say, hey, this is happening, right? You have a court date. That's been the most help that police have provided, at least here in Philadelphia, for our survivors. Sometimes their support in enforcing that PFA, if it's been broken and the survivor calls for support, sometimes that does happen. And then sometimes we see DV service information being given out, and that's been a really helpful thing for folks that we work with. And then we also want to prep folks for the other side of the coin, right? To say that it can happen, and it does happen all the time, that police might display a lack of empathy. They might blame you, the survivor. That's who we're working with, right? They might even arrest you, or that dual arrest that came up on the Post-its there. They might side with your abusive partner, give you false information, right? They might deprioritize you if you've called before, which is why that's one of our very first questions of, have you called before? Because we know how true that can be. We also want to prepare folks that they are potentially going to have to do a lot of emotional labor to really get what they're looking for out of this call, right? And we're not saying this with joy. This is a really sad fact and a sad reality of what we've seen to be true with the folks that we work with. Our next little box here is if we're calling on behalf of that survivor, what are some things that, again, our staff, that's who created this, have found to be helpful? Some of that is really making sure we're staying fact-based, right? This is what happened and here it is, right? If there's physical violence, if there's a weapon, etc. We've seen it be helpful to say, and because it is true, that we have knowledge of a potential crime about to happen, helps to prioritize calls so that police do arrive a little quicker, especially when that's the situation that we're faced with on the hotline. That's where that one came from. When it's possible, we can request, right, a DV team, a mental health team. That came up before here in this group as well. And then this isn't one that we say, but just remembering for ourselves that if things do escalate, the survivor is likely the one that's going to be impacted. And so taking that breath and really staying grounded in, we're doing this as survivor support, and we're working with people to get them the help that they want and that they're asking for. Let me pause there. Just make a quick check that all these are about tech. Good luck. I hope it is working out. All right. And then we've got two more boxes here. So this one is about exploring other options. This one that can be very helpful. This is for either those times that I think calling 911 is the one choice that's there and the thing that you should do, or if a survivor says this feels like the only thing I can do, but I don't want to. Figuring out what else we can do, right? So some of those helpful questions that our hotline supervisor was coming up with was, it doesn't seem like it's safe to call the police right now. What are things that you can do to stay safe or protect yourself when things escalate, right? This is similar to that Back to the Future type idea of, have you been in a situation exactly or similar to this before? What happened then? Let's try and build a plan together for the next time. Again, if for any of the valid reasons, police don't feel like an option for you right now. Right, I know you don't want to be in a home where there's violence. Would you consider going to another place for tonight, right? Potentially leaving. Who can you connect with or contact if you need to talk before, during, or after the incident? So trying to get to that emotional safety planning with folks. And really just helping people decide for themselves, what are things you need to feel safe right now? And that piece of how have you stayed safe in the past? And I'll say sometimes having conversations like any of these then lead people saying, well, you know what, it's not my favorite, but the thing that I am going to do is call 911 for whatever reason, or, engage with the police for whatever reason. And sometimes they say, oh, great, here, I hadn't even thought of this, but here's what I can do instead. So we're just exploring those options. And again, like I've said a couple of times, this is when there's time, when we're able, right? And then this last piece, one has the citations for those stats up top. And then the other two parts are just some additional considerations, right? Knowing that there's pressure in our society to call 911, that's what we're told. I'll say that's what I was told, and lots of people growing up, but definitely for me, that if you need help, call 911. And so checking with folks if it is something you want to do or something you feel like you have to do. Really wanting to just figure out who can support the survivor in this moment, but also after, take some time with that. We've seen that really, truly, unfortunately, that in moments when there's anti-police brutality protests, our survivors are saying they're being treated even worse when they do call the police for support. So just being aware of that for ourselves as advocates to then be able to continue safety planning with folks as needed, and recognizing that we all have our own potentially complicated relationship with police. And so wanting to validate that and say that we as supporters also need support sometimes. And so being able to validate that and make the call out to get it when you need it. Last piece, is for when things go wrong, right? So if they're going wrong, really working with that survivor to be ready to say something along the lines of, with their version, what they would actually need of, can you just please escort me away? Right? And that there's no shame in shifting from that initial goal, here's what I want, to just staying safe and alive or getting away as best you can. We want to let folks know that it can be helpful to note down badge numbers if things are going wrong, and to just note them for later. That especially if a police officer is currently breaking a law or doing something dangerous or what feels unsafe, that trying to interrupt them in that moment is likely going to make it even worse. And so being able to just note it down for later could be a good idea. And then the last thing is potentially working with folks to say, how do you currently de-escalate your abusive partner when they're abusing you? that skill might come in handy, right, if things start to go south. And again, these aren't things that we're just throwing out there. This is what's coming up in the conversation with survivors based on their feelings about police, what's happening right out in the world around us, what we know about their neighborhoods, all of that stuff to say, what's the safety plan we need to make? What do we need to talk about with you if we have this time to talk about where we're at with things? All right, so that is our, I'll say cute, but that's our handout. That's our cute little handout that, again, is on the conference website, so you can see it all in one go. Here it's chopped up just to make the font large enough to see. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, I just want to take a quick pause because it's been some time of just staring at the screen, listening to me drone on. Feel free, take a quick brain break. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to get up and stretch right here, and we'll come back in 2. So at 43 after, we'll get started again. All right. Welcome back. I hope you took advantage of that. It looks like my camera is not working, but maybe it'll kick on. And in the meantime, here we are together, at least with audio. There it is. All right, so that was a bit of content, a bit of stuff coming in pretty hot with some of those ideas, I know. I just took a little break. I'm going to do a little bit different kind of break right now and just invite you to, whether it's literal journaling, if you've got, something to write on, something to write with, and you want to note down some thoughts, any feelings that are coming up, or if you want to queue up a Word doc or an email draft, I'll put the sections of the handout back up on the screen, but again, you can access it yourself and move around as you will. We'll just give a couple minutes. Let me start a timer for 2 minutes. Just get out what's on top for you, right? What comes up, whatever it might be. There's nothing wrong, no wrong answers here when looking at or thinking about this handout. Just watching the timer. Let's give it a last 20 or 30 seconds on this piece or wherever you are. We'll come back together. I see you there, Dana. Let me get back to that one. Yeah, this is a great time to welcome in, again, the questions, the curiosities. I'll keep calling for it. Any of the pushback, folks who are feeling any kind of not great way about things I've said or things that you see on here. Would love to have that conversation. So feel free to add them in the chat. Implication for calling legal. I'm trying to find it on here, Dana, so it can at least be on the screen. But while I'm scrolling, I'll also run my mouth here of what are some of the legal implications that we've seen. I think the first one that comes to mind is that piece around dual arrest. Working with survivors to, again, all the things I'll offer the caveat, I'll try to do it less often, but when we can, right? When we can ask, when there is time to explore it of, right, like, have you fought back? How have you defended yourself? And are there any things like that have happened that might lead to you being arrested? Do you have kids? And is there anything that would lead to a DHS report, right? Whether we're going to make it with you or if you're worried that it might happen against your will. Those are some of the things that pop to mind right away for folks. Or for me, sorry. And then wondering for other folks, what comes to your mind of potential legal implications for calling the police? Anything you've seen or heard about? Oh gosh, it's right at the top. Woo! Right, false reporting charges. Yeah, I'll bring us, I'm gonna skip ahead a bunch of slides. Hope it doesn't make anyone seasick to watch these flash past. It doesn't go that quick. Great. Here's something I just put a few slides here at the end to see. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about them, but right here's something that we use quite a bit in this movement, the power and control wheel. It's one of the foundations of how we do what we do these days, right? Noticing that abusive relationships are about power and control, not a particular tactic. Yeah, the less seriously they take it if they're called more often. Sometimes, right, those can go together with the false reporting to say that we've come out here a lot. I also, the reason that I brought the power and control wheel up now is to just take a moment and notice if, right, if these are the things, some of the things that are happening in an abusive relationship of what abuse is in that holistic frame, right? Not talking about the legal world, but in the holistic, this is what an abusive relationship is, the ways that someone can control the other person in the relationship, right? How many of these are actually against any law in particular? How many of these are things that even if the police arrive in a time, like are called, arrive in a timely manner, are supportive, want to help. How many of these are things, right, that they even have the ability to make an arrest about or to bring any kind of legal repercussion against the abusive partner for, right? I'll get you Janelle in a second. Yeah. So to say, for the things that I see, it's not most of them, that's for sure, right? Some of the things for sure are definitely illegal against laws. And a lot of the ways that one person can control another in a relationship, that's what we use for our definition of an abusive relationship, aren't against a law. And so, sure, there might be that individual officer or two somewhere that, you know, they're trying their best, and so they're going to make something work to arrest that person. And overall, what we see and hear from survivors is that, you know, there aren't marks, there wasn't physical violence, it was, you know, emotional, and the police, right, are either threatening them with false reporting, saying you have to stop calling us, right, or because of the gaslighting, because of the emotional abuse, that survivors themselves are saying, well, I guess it wasn't that bad, right? It doesn't need to escalate this much, right? Maybe I should have X, Y, or Z, or maybe I didn't do, you know, whatever it was well enough. Maybe it is my fault, right? Lots of reasons that survivors might downplay it, right? And then, yeah, the ways that police cannot take it seriously can roll into that as well. Yeah. All right, going back up. Whee. Curious again, just other, sometimes reports say a push warranting a summary charge of harassment. Right. Yeah, that sounds like, and Kareen, correct me if I'm catching you wrong here. That sounds like one of those times where, yeah, the officer is really trying their best to say, okay, we need to do something. This situation is not okay. They're asking for help. The help I can give is by, yeah, reporting that there was a push, and so we can call that harassment at least. Just want to pause again to call in other trying to get something against them. Yep. Yeah, trying their best, trying to get something against them. Yeah, them being the abusive partner in this case. Yeah. To call in other voices, if there's moments of disagreement, if there's moments of agreement that you want to give a shout out to, but just yeah, given some more time to grapple with any of the parts on here that maybe feel a little spicy or feel a little challenging or just feel like, oh, finally someone's saying it. Some of those like bigger feelings that might be alive out there. I don't know what they all are, but I'm guessing they might be there. All right. Well, it's never too late. You're always welcome to bring them in whenever it might be. And as we're getting down there on time, I wanted to, yeah, do a little bit of playing around with it. So we're going to go back to those the slides that you can all type onto as well. And I'm going to bring this scenario over there. Here we are. Let me get that link again. Just be safe. Pardon. So the link is in the chat if you want to or are able to join. We can do a couple of these to make sure that there's enough space to write on. Feel free to go to any of them. Pardon. And the offer here is to think through what actually might happen in a scenario like this. And feel free, if you need to augment it a little bit, right? Make a new, we get to be in this together. So feel free to, copy slide 8, make it slide 9, and change it from your neighbor to your client tells you, or you get a call on the phone that this happened and then the person left. If you need to change it to make it more realistic for you, feel free. If you're able to be here in the way that it's written here, I'll read it out. That the scenario is that you hear your neighbors yelling at each other, and then what sounds like things turning physical. Your neighbor is a woman and her boyfriend moved in recently. This is a Philly context, so we share walls in most of our places with our neighbors, so that's what I'm thinking of. But you can hear them through the wall. And you believe, right, these are your neighbors, so it's probably happened some. You believe that he is physically abusing her. You hear him say that he's going to the store for more beer. And so there's this pause. You have some access. You're able to go knock on her door. And then there's some options, right? She tells you she wants to call the police. There's a space in here just to get it out there of like, how does that feel? Just what comes up for you? What feelings, what thoughts, what are your initial, okay, or great, or oh God, no, or, what comes up for you? And then what questions do you ask her, right? What are we getting into with her in this situation? There's another box where she says she does not want to call the police. What comes up for you there? What questions are you thinking of asking? And then just another space for what else would you talk about, right? Outside of this binary of call the police or don't call the police, there's a whole world of options out there. What else might come up? So I see some folks on this slide 6. If you're feeling like there's not space to type, again, go to 7, 8, copy and paste 8 and make it number 9 and go create the space you need to get some thoughts out. I'll come over and pay attention to the chat as well. Wow, that's very difficult to see, huh? I'm going to come in and just change the font color. See if we can get it a little bit darker. So don't be alarmed if you're typing and it highlights. No, just do what I want. Okay. And if, as always, if you're unable to type on this, feel free to type into the chat. And then once we get a few on here, I'll read them out as well, because I know it can be difficult to see. Be able to make space for sharing. It had to be tinier font. All right, last one. We all love this virtual world we get to be in of dealing with a little mishaps like this. All right, I don't see anything new in the chat, so let me make it the tiniest bit bigger. If it's in present mode, then folks can't type on it, so we can at least make it full screen. All right, so some of the stuff, let's start with what else would you talk about? Do you have a family or friend that you could possibly get support from if you need it? I would add in that wrinkle of like maybe even stay with if they're trying to leave right now. She says she wants to call the police, right? Things coming up are just like, okay. Some thoughts, curiosities, maybe worries of what if they don't do anything? What if he comes home when they're there? But call if she wants to, of course. Yep, definitely with you there, whoever wrote that. Questions to ask if do you have somewhere to stay? Do you want to come to my place to call them? Awesome, yeah. She says she doesn't want to, right? The things coming up are, do you feel safe if we don't call? And then what can I do to help you? How do you feel safe for the next 24 hours? That's awesome, right? Keeping it into succinct timeframes to say, how are you going to, live a happy, healthy life for the rest of it is big and broad for a moment like this kind of crisis. So for this next day, how are you going to feel safe? Do you have somewhere to stay? Incredible. Yeah. Other stuff for not wanting to call the police, that sometimes calling the police isn't the right thing. So we need to respect her choice, her decision there, but giving her the options of other ways to get safe, right? Coming up with some brainstorming there. Asking about if she has a support system, safe place to stay, incredible. If she does want to call the police on this same slide, I'm seeing the desire would be to get her to a safe place to call and then let her, call and explain the circumstances. And so, asking, right, do you need medical attention in case she needs to go to the ER? Awesome, yeah, not really sure what happened, right? We can build a whole story around such a small scenario. What feels like it's missing from some of these options? What else could go in that? What else would you talk about area? I see some folks writing, so I'll give it a pause to make sure it's there. Yeah, what relaxes you? Awesome. It can feel counterintuitive to ask something like that in a hot moment like this. And I think that comes from our culture that doesn't value emotional well-being as much as it could or should. And so really getting into that is awesome to see. Yeah, do you want to pack a to-go bag or get prepared? Yep. Yeah, reassure that she's not alone. Let her know that you're here to get her help. Here to help get her someplace safe. Can I call someone for you? Other things to talk about there. Yep. Yeah. I would add the potential wrinkle. I'm curious how this lands for this, to let her know that you're here to help get her someplace safe. If the end of that sentence doesn't need to be there and it's just let her know that you're here, right? Hey, I'm your neighbor. I care about you. I'm here. Whatever you decide to do or need to do, I want to do my best to support you with it. Even if that decision is staying. Even if you say, I don't want to do anything right now. Okay, right? So I can go, I just spaced on the name of it. There's the circles of support idea, dump out and care in, that when someone is being impacted by something, this comes from like the mortality world and hospice, that the person who's at the center of that circle facing the die or something, we just give them all the care that they need. And then we look outward to people further away from the situation to get the support for how that decision or how whatever they're doing impacts us. So my neighbor saying, I want to do nothing. Yeah, he's going to get more beer. Yeah, it might get worse tonight, but I'm just here. Like, F off, right? Or leave me alone, or no, thank you. Any of that can be really hard. And still being able to say, well, I'm here with you. And I'm going to be here either way. And then I can go call whoever. I can call the domestic violence hotline to say, it's happening to my neighbor and they don't want me to do anything. It sucks. And at least get that emotional support of like, yeah, that does suck. That is really hard. And if we're going to, lean into this world of empowering survivors, then me stepping in to say, no, you need to whatever, or fine, I'm just going to call the cops on you, right? That is me stepping into the stance, stepping into the shoes of the abusive partner in their life to say, well, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to control you because I don't think you're doing it right. Yeah. And so we don't want to get into that situation, and we don't want to pretend like it's easy. So getting that support is something that's really important for us as advocates all the time. All right, I want to pause again after any little rant I do and just check in. How's stuff landing? Are there other things that need space or airtime in this group right now? Things that you want to say, that you want to share, whether out loud or in the chat. All right, then I'm going to do a quick cleanup while we're together and just call for any other questions that might be here with us. Any other things that need or want to get said? Because that is what those last couple of minutes are saved for. So I am finding, where do these go? They go here. And then I'll copy this link into the chat in a second. Sorry, this is not the most fun part of any workshop. But I want to make sure that your ideas are shared. Each other. All right, so you should be able to, with this link, see all of the slides together from the main slideshow here. Oh, I see people popping in. Great, that's you. So feel free to head wherever you need or want to in this slideshow. I'm going to bring us back to this handout. And just again, we have about 10 minutes left. So to call for any questions, curiosities, as always, the pushback, the people who are disagreeing, folks who have a totally different experience and want to have a little bit of space for that. Now is the time to bring it in. whatever that might sound like. I promise it won't hurt my feelings or I won't make it weird. What are the things that folks want to say or need to ask? Let's keep moving around to some of the different points. If there's anything to clarify, anything that would feel helpful there. Make it big again, why not? Then for now, I just want to offer something that we like to do at the end of trainings is just one, say thanks so much for joining. You'll have my contact info in that presentation. Appreciate y'all. And then at Lutheran Settlement House, we like to end trainings in some form or ritual. And so I found a poem that I thought was really nice, leads into the world as it was and as it could be again. I just want to share that with y'all. And then if you're feeling good to head out. And if you have questions, feel free to stay. This is a poem that I like a lot. It's called Small Kindnesses. It's by Danusha Lamaris. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by, or how strangers still say, bless you, when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we are saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire. Only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy? These fleeting temples we make together when we say, here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat. Just say, thank you again for being here, for taking time together, sharing your wisdom, sharing your hopes and dreams, sharing your thoughts and ideas. A true blessing to get to be together. So thanks, everybody. Again, here's the link for those slides if you'd like to see them anytime. And yeah, really appreciate y'all. Thanks for, I see a lot of love in the chat and appreciate you very much. I'm going to stop sharing and we can kind of be here together. As always, feel free to unmute, ask those questions, give that pushback, drop it in the chat, whatever it might be, and have a great day, whoever's heading out to wherever you're headed.
Toby, this is Jeff. Just want to say thank you very much. Very, very nice, very well done.
Thanks. I appreciate it, Jeff. Thanks for, having me come in.
Great.
Yeah, Toby, I just wanted to pop on too, just to say the same thing. That was incredibly informative, and I really appreciate you doing this for us all today.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. It's fun. These are the good combos, right? We get into together about, what is this reality we're in and how can we make it work for us? The dog could make an appearance. She's been making a physical one on me. There she is. Hey, Frankie. They want to say hi.
Hey there.
Is that you? Yeah. Hello.
That's usually me when I'm at home. So.
Right? Yeah. Usually me too. And then, sorry, just my poor planning today being like, oh crap, it's an office day. I don't have time. I need to bring her with me to take her for a walk at lunch so she's not bouncing off the walls.
Mine go through panic, through anxiety on my office days because, they end up in their crates, at least for a little while till our daughter gets home and can let them out. But so they go through a little anxiety on my office days.
Yep. Yeah. No, this pandemic has been a lot for everybody and lots of creatures. And, I'll feel for the dogs right now to be like, how confusing that all of a sudden you're here always and then you're not again. What?
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and log off. Thank you again, Toby. We certainly appreciate it. And we'll make sure you get the link to Jacqueline's presentation as well.
Yes, please. Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.
Thanks again, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everybody. I'll give it just like a last couple seconds in case anything pops up. Sometimes folks wait till the end for the real good stuff. And then I will also log off here at probably in a minute. All right. I'm going to call it a day. Sean, is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go ahead and end this. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.